Some people say they didn't know they were in danger at first. They didn't realize that they were being pulled into deeper water and into terrifying territory. They thought they were moving towards the shore until their limbs started to get heavy and the cold realization that they were caught in a riptide set in. I didn't know this, but apparently, any beach that has waves can have riptides. Sometimes they catch you by surprise because they can hide under what looks like calm water. They're like little rivers in the ocean, and the pull can be so strong that it takes more lives in a year than you would expect. The professional advice when it comes to riptides is not to swim straight to shore, but instead to escape the grip of the rip, as they call it, and swim parallel to the beach until they reach an area of the water that's calm and safe. However, new studies have surfaced that shows another way to survive the currents. This study has found that sometimes the best option is to give in to the current, roll with the rip cycle, breathe when you can, and wait to be floated back to shore. This scientific study has caused a lot of division in professional opinion when it comes to water safety. They say that when you're panicking, being sucked in by a force so much stronger than you are, floating would be counterintuitive. Others say that if you're not a strong swimmer, then swimming parallel to the shore will exhaust you faster and make you even more susceptible to drowning. But the general consensus is no body of water will have the same kind of riptide. Sometimes you'll need to buck up, gather all your strength, and fight to escape the cold clutches of the current. And sometimes you'll need to let go, ride out the waves, and let the water take you back to shore. Both advice has its pitfalls, and yet both require the same thing: keeping calm and your will to live. I'm Chris Flojo, and this is You're Just Okay, and That's Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the podcast about the mundane, everyday things that make up the human experience. I invite you to come celebrate the in-betweens with me. Thanks for joining in for another episode of You're Just Okay, and That's Okay. I like having you here with me. It's nice. And I've got quite a story to tell you today. Today we're going to talk about things we can't control and how sometimes change happens to us abruptly and we don't get to prepare for it. This may seem like nothing to some people, but I have never been good with sudden changes. I do not do well with them. I like warnings. I like having time to prepare. But change doesn't care about my anxieties, though, and we've seen how cruel Mother Nature can be with her sudden mood swings. And we know that's how life plays out. Things will always change. One day, you wake up and everything's normal. And then suddenly by lunchtime, you're in love. Either with a stranger or maybe somebody you've known 15 years. I don't know, it happens, right? Or, tragically, you could lose a loved one. Suddenly, also, without warning. For my friend, Jules Rodriguez, change came one quiet night in 2009 when he was taken by 5 men and kidnapped for ransom. After the break, let's dive headfirst into his terrifying and beautiful tale of survival.
Hi everyone, my name is Jules Rodriguez. I am a multimedia artist, an environmentalist, and I run a nonprofit called Plastic Tides, which aims to raise awareness for plastic pollution, not just in the Philippines, but around the world. In 2009, I got kidnapped for ransom. We had a computer gaming shop, and these 5 armed guys came into the computer shop as we were closing, and they told my sister to go with them. And I guess my my protective instinct was to tell them, "Huy, wag yan, ate ko yan." And they said, ate mo gusto mo ikaw na lang yung kunin namin. Sabi ko, okay. So,
Okay.
so they did. The whole experience did feel like a dream, parang movie siya eh. So they took me, they brought me first to Bulacan for one night, and then they brought me to Urdaneta, Pangasinan for the next 4 days. And this was a few days of just I would say mental torture because I did feel very helpless. There was really a real threat of me being killed. They were asking for money from my family. They asked for 20 million pesos. We had discovered after the whole experience was that these guys were ex-military and ex-police
Mm.
and ex-army, whatever. And these guys just wanted to find someone who they believed could pay the ransom, hold them captive, and if they couldn't pay the ransom, the plan for me specifically was to get rid
Right.
of me so that they could make room for someone else. I could hear them talking in the room where I was kept, and basically they were saying, "Oh, patayin na natin to para may room pa tayo para sa parating na isa." And at that time, I was like, man, I gotta do something.
Right.
So I prepared myself to attack. I had a small nail with me, and I was saying, you know, if anything happens, bahala na. I'll do my best. I'll try to escape and all. But the guys never came into the room. At about 6 p.m., I was just like, I'm done. I'm gonna give up. I'm done waiting. I'm just gonna go to the bed and sleep. I don't want to wait for this anymore. And let's see what happens. And by the time I put my head on the pillow, I hear this loud commotion outside, and it's these people shouting, saying, "Dapa, dapa, dumapa kayo!" And gunshots, just a barrage of gunshots. And by the end of it, 5 people were killed in the rescue, and I came out unscathed and brought back to Metro Manila from Pangasinan and brought back to my family. And the most interesting thing about it for me in retrospect was para akong na-abduct ng aliens at binalik sa Pilipinas.
Oh boy.
Tapos I tell the story, but people can't relate because it's so far from what is normal. And I really felt alone. I felt like I could keep telling the story, but I wouldn't be able to really have other people feel what I was feeling. So that's what really, I guess, my challenge or my hurdle, that I really felt like I went through something so unbelievable, so life-changing, but I also couldn't express it 100% because it was like I was just telling the plot to a movie.
What was that feeling, Jules, to be alone in your room and having like what were the thoughts in your head? Did it match what you thought it was gonna feel like when you were in that cell? What was the feeling that you were met with when you finally got home and the dust settled?
Empty. I felt like I was drained of everything. I felt like I had lost everything I ever learned in life. I felt like I was at my weakest, and I couldn't get out of it. I had no way or no source of energy or positivity that I could draw from to feel happy. Nung na-rescue ako, hindi yung feeling na, yay! Rescue! Yay! Happy! Whatever. This one was more of, I was broken. I felt like I was a jar. I was just thrown to the ground and smashed. Like if you look in your room right now, if you're listening to this and you look around your room, imagine that you're just throwing everything in the room around, and like you're just throwing the table, flipping the tables and all that stuff, and everything's just a mess. That was me inside, and I didn't know where to start. like where to start picking up. So I was left with that. Na yun lang, parang na-devastate lahat. Internally, I felt like I died. Literally, I felt like I died. I felt like I wasn't the old me. I wasn't the happy-go-lucky and positive Jules that people used to know. So, yan, that was it. I was destroyed. And then empty. To kind of help cope with that, I was a consultant for the PNP for the 5 years. Yeah, and I made a small documentary called How to Survive a Kidnapping, which was basically interviewing other kidnapped victims as well and what they did and how they were able to survive, and family members as well. So that really helped me kind of put things into perspective, at least for me, and create a finality of the experience. What I did not expect was the latent PTSD that was coming
Right.
after that.
Right.
I didn't even know what PTSD was. I had been recommended to a psychiatrist and a psychologist, and I was prescribed medicine. But the whole concept of trauma for me was so new in that sense that I
Mm.
didn't even know what to expect. Every day was a cloud. I was in a cloud. I wasn't feeling anything inside. I had gone through something so intense that I was looking for the same intensity, and I wanted to get that back just so that I can prove that it's real, that what happened to me is real.
Right.
Because I look back on the experience and I still feel like it's a dream. I still feel like it never happened because it was only me who was actually in the room. That was really my challenge for the next few years. How do you deal with feeling alone, even if you're in a room full of people?
Right.
Or how do you deal with your inner voice telling you that this what you have in this life is not enough? Nothing is enough after that experience. So that's what really led me to start taking action. I slowly moved into um, an actionable mindset, which allowed me to kind of focus on what my heart really wanted. I trained with the military, and I learned how to do escape and evasion, how to do land navigation, how to do practical shooting, outdoor survival, and all that stuff to really kind of like bolster what I needed so that I could at least keep myself in check.
Mm.
And it worked. I took the risk. I started doing military simulation events as well. It brought me back to that experience where I was being rescued. But in this moment, I wasn't the one being rescued, but I was helping rescue other people.
Right.
Yeah, they took the power from me, and now I give the power to other people.
Right.
That's what I wanted to happen. Seeing other people benefit from my efforts was really what was making me feel less powerless. And this powerlessness was really the core emotion that I got when I was kidnapped. Parang it was really a traumatic experience, but being alive really surpasses all of that.
Right. Right.
I went back to studying in university. Of course, I took
Mm.
super light loads, and then right after I graduated from LaSalle, I got a job with Survivor, which was so poetic as well.
Right. Exactly. You're just like, when they asked you for your qualifications, you were like, you might want to sit down for
Wow.
this.
Yeah,
Let me
exactly.
tell you a story.
And that's what I did. After a few weeks, I was sent to Karamoan for about 4 months, and my job was to test the challenges
Mm.
that they were gonna let the contestants do. And while we weren't testing, I was also painting, building, cleaning up fields in the middle of nowhere, helping catch snakes. There, I mean, it kind of aligned in that sense because I really wanted to do more of that stuff, and that's what made me qualified for the job. And all this time, I still didn't feel like I was going through a depression. All this time, I didn't know what PTSD was really.
Right.
And it was kind of like keeping everything at bay because I was doing all these extreme stuff. and sports and all that. But yeah, and slowly over time, I started seeing the effects that the trauma had on me. I would
Mm.
have triggers whenever there was a pop or an
Mm.
explosion or something. To me, it was always, it's a gun, even if it wasn't.
Right.
To me, it was
Right.
always, it's a gun, it's a gun, it's a gun. And I'm always paranoid. So that to me was like, wait, parang mali ako. It was really affecting the way I was thinking. And then yeah, I started looking up on PTSD and depression and all. It was really the course that my life was running through, that the trauma that I had gone through was really affecting my thoughts, my actions, my mindset entering anything new. And it wasn't always a positive effect. I was grumpy, I was impatient, I was always tactical. I was always, this is the time we need to be here, this is what we need to do, these are the plans, this is this and that. And that's why I did really well on Survivor, because I was always on point. But then that tension inside me was also what was keeping me like so stressed inside the whole time.
Mm.
And yeah, so I really had a lot of dark thoughts because I wanted to try and escape that energy. I felt like there was always like a lot of voices in my own head that was telling me that everything I was doing was never enough. After Survivor, I saved up all my money and I couch surfed through Europe. Super duper tipid kasi yun nga, budget. And I was able to see 6 countries, and I was staying in people's houses. I was staying in college dorms. I was using the couch surfing network to find individuals who were open to have strangers on their couch. But the catch is that you have a profile on couch surfing
Mm.
that shows who you are as a person. You type answers to the things you like, you don't like, what your offer is to your hosts who host you. So I was able to do that for 2 months and 10 days, and I only paid for like 10 days of hostels. And all the
Wild.
people I met were so they were so open-minded. It reminded me that the Philippines is so small,
Mm.
and you're just like no one. And that's the best part of it. Parang nakidnap ako, and I was the focus of the whole experience. There were people who rescued me, 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 me. But
Right.
when I was outside and I was traveling on my own, I was a no one, and I could just disappear. And it really made me feel like parang the real focus of life is really inside. Ano yung fulfillment ko sa loob. And that's what really helped me grow and have trust in strangers. And one thing I talked to myself about after the experience was that I believed that the world, or it proved to me that the world is inherently good. That was an experience for me that helped me learn to trust more people, especially strangers. To me, that was really an inspirational moment na parang there are other people out there who are doing an even more extreme thing, or they've gone through even more trauma than me, but they're really fulfilling their lives. Being kidnapped isn't the pinnacle of trauma experience, and it's not
Mm.
pataasan or
Mm.
pa-intense experience. It's about how you went through it.
You went through something that was extreme. Would you say that to anybody who goes through any form of extreme trauma, that doing something also extreme but on the opposite pole would be recommended? Because normal everyday things can't match up to what that negative experience did. Would you say you're gonna have to go as far as couch surfing if you really want to heal truly and fully?
I think you get what you give. You get the work that you put into it. To me, the healing that I needed was also through an extreme act. But to some people, baka naman mas okay sa kanila na they follow a slow development of growth. Maybe to some other people, it's more of you don't have to do something extreme. Maybe you can just meditate about it over time and you'll
Right.
heal from it. So kanya-kanya talaga.
Mm.
But to other people, my question is, if you were really given this chance to redo your life or to get a second chance at life, ano yung gusto mo talagang gawin? Because when you find what makes your heart sing, that's when you realize that you're fulfilling your real self, your soul.
Do you feel like you finally exhaled? Was there a moment when you feel like you've come out finally for air?
You know, it's moments. It's like it's on and off. Kasi even now, I still look back at the kidnapping as a source of energy. Because it's uranium. It's like nuclear power for me to look back on such a terrible experience and say, Jules, you survived that. So you're gonna do a documentary in 6 countries in the next few weeks, and you're leaving. So if you can survive a kidnapping, you can finish this documentary. Yun yung nagiging bar na sineset ko for myself to excel. It was never like a final exhale na parang, okay, I'm good, I'm done. It was more of like coming up for breath and then diving back in.
For the people who are listening and they find themselves on the other side of the person, they know somebody who's going through trauma, what can we do? What can we say to help a person who's feeling that? Is there even anything we can do or say?
Yeah, actually, for me, it's I'm here to talk. But sometimes timing is important. Kasi you can be there for someone if you want to talk, but maybe at that moment they don't have everything that they want to talk about.
Mm.
Parang it's not a singular moment that you can say, I want to help you. To be able to have someone that you can just bounce ideas from and who doesn't parang give too much value into your intense emotions, because I needed someone to be kind of like my emotional shock absorber.
Was it hard to find people who were willing to do that?
Yeah, because I don't really open up to a lot of people. I don't have a lot of I have close friends, but I don't have a lot of close friends. But it also became na who are my friends who I can really like tell what I feel.
I would assume that's not an easy thing. That's not an easy burden to bear, to be the person on the receiving end. So you also got to realize who the through thick and thin people are.
I was invited to paddleboard around the whole country of Bermuda to raise awareness for plastic pollution and collect plastic samples in the Atlantic. So we
Right.
were paddleboarding 11 days around an island in the middle of the Atlantic.
Oh, wild.
So, and everything that we had was on the boards. So you had to be self-sustaining. We had to be as zero waste as possible. And we had to collect scientific data while we were at it. We circumnavigated the island and we did workshops with the kids, teaching them about plastic pollution. We created a documentary, and that opened up a whole new phase of my life, which is the environmentalist and conservationist mindset that allowed me to even go beyond what I expected my life to be. So, yan, parang I thank the trauma. I thank the pain and suffering that I went through, because now I know how extreme or how far I can physically go and mentally go and know when my limits are there.
What is in store for you now? It seems like you've already, done work that's worth for like how many lifetimes. What's in store for Jules now? What are you looking forward to?
What I'm really excited about is to really share more. Like, that's why I love that you asked me to talk, because this is now where I feel like I'm feeling more fulfilled, that I can share more about what I know, about healing, about getting through your own personal traumas. I'm here in the mountains. I want to share the mountains with people. I have this waterfall that I like to hike. I want to share that with people, because really now it's about expressing to other people what helped me heal, and maybe in some way it can help them heal too. I'm not imposing, I'm only merely offering it as a suggestion. If you want to heal, if you want to find a different perspective on life, let's talk.
I am so thankful that you are feeling really generous with sharing your experience with others.
Alam mo, I believe that everyone has been touched by trauma.
Mm,
Everyone has had some form of trauma, even if it's not a kidnapping,
right.
even if it's like nothing so intense. Once you're able to really start looking within, that's what I believe the real third eye is the one that looks within,
Mm,
is the one that allows you to judge yourself and to really test your own self so that you can be a better person. That's what the whole experience made me feel, that I had a new introspective approach to my own life because of this trauma. Some people kasi, they've adapted this trauma and they've passed it on to other people. There
mm.
are there's generations of trauma that has been passed
Yes.
on that we have to identify. There's always something there. We can't be pure. No one is pure. So, point ko lang dun, if you feel that you want to be learning from this type of experience, or you want to have that next level of introspection, try to look at the things that affected the way you think, or try to look at the things that you are afraid of, or that you don't want to talk about sometimes. Maybe that's a good place to start. And maybe when we understand the things that we're afraid of, then we can live a life that's less anxiety ridden or less
Yes.
pressured. That's the problem now. People are always pressured to be great. You can't compare. You gotta live your own. If you're really true to yourself and you really know yourself and you know what makes you happy and you're not hurting other people, that's where your growth and your life can really grow. Self acceptance is not something that comes with the package.
Right, right.
You have to find it, you have to grow it. And once you find your own self acceptance, maybe you can help other people find that too. And help other people find their dignity as well. And get them out of their own traumas. One of the things I learned that my dad shared with me was that the answer to a question unasked is always no. Parang if you don't ask for help, if you don't ask someone for this and that, if you don't ask, it's okay to ask. Because even if you get a no, take the effort, take the risk. Because if you don't even try, then it's always a no.
A lot of survivors of riptides talk about the moment they felt the sand on their toes. As much as their limbs burned and screamed for rest, they knew that if they stopped swimming, no matter how close the shore may seem, they would only be pulled back into the current. And so they swam and fought until finally they felt the ground solidly under their feet. They would collapse on the beach, their whole body shaking, so very aware of how closely they came to drowning. What I find most interesting is that in a lot of these stories, there were people nearby who had no idea about the danger that these survivors were in. To them, they simply looked like they were swimming in place. When they called out for help, a lot of the time the people around couldn't understand and went on splashing about in the very same beach just outside the rip current's grasp. The people who did help usually were people who either were aware of the danger or have gone through it themselves. They saw the signs, they heard the cries, and pulled them out of the water. You may never have experienced trauma as intense or dark as what Jules did, and I hope you never do. But he was right when he said that we have all been touched by some form of trauma. We've all found ourselves floating peacefully on gentle waves when suddenly the current around us changes and we start to lose control and the water threatens to swallow us whole. If that's where you find yourself now, friend, I hope you keep swimming. or if you decide to let go and let the water take you back to shore, I hope you don't forget to take a deep breath before you go in. And above all, I hope you have someone nearby who sees you and reaches out a hand to help pull you out of the current. You will feel the ground again, and it will be solid under your feet, and you'll finally be able to lay your tired body on the shore with the sun on your back and air in your lungs. You are alive. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of You're Just Okay and That's Okay. And this is our last episode for 2020. I want to say thank you to every single person, every single friend who came and allowed me to ask them to tell their stories. And were so generous with their stories. You guys really made my year. And also to everybody who took time to listen and just, spent a few minutes with me every single time I let out an episode. Thank you. I really, really appreciate you listening and sharing and letting me know that, whenever you liked an episode or felt like you could relate. I love hearing that somehow, these stories touched you in some way. Wherever you are, I hope you are surrounded by people you love. And I hope that you are looking forward to a very Merry Christmas. Thank you for spending 2020 with me. And I look forward to more wonderful stories to tell in the coming year. Merry, Merry Christmas. I love you and I thank you. And I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.